It's time for Energy Insights, where you get an inside view and a local perspective of all the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley. This program is brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association and can be heard every Saturday on WMOA AM 1490 and FM 101.3, JAW's Classic Country FM 100.9, and ESPN AM 630 and FM 92.9. Here's Johnny Wharf, your local host.
Energy Insights on a Saturday morning brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Dorinda Byers is our guest, and maybe a little background for our listeners. We've talked to several people over the last several weeks about the workforce. How do we get the young people involved? How do we get, we're in the radio business trying to do the same thing that they're trying to do in the energy sector. So maybe you can tell us what the trends are there.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure. Working with the energy industry several times over the years in various projects, and workforce is one of the biggest challenges that everyone is facing these days. So just talking a little bit the other day at a presentation about how 1 out of every 3 Gen Zers is in EET, not in education, not in employment, not in training. So that's a concern. 2/3 are in the workforce, but 1/3 is not. How do we move those Gen Z individuals and get them interested in gainful employment? Some of the things they're looking for, I think, are different than what we might have been looking for. They're looking for flexible schedules. They're prioritizing mental health. They're prioritizing paid time off. They're also prioritizing wages. So how do we make sure that we are able maybe to adapt to try to meet them where they are? But not every industry can do that. So when you think about energy, people expect their lights to come on. People expect their home to be warm. So we can't always make every adaptation to what they want either.
When we think about when I got into it was like you can have 1 week of vacation after a year, 2 weeks after 3, and that's it, cut and dry, right? So no longer, I think, are we going at this based on the idea that in my way or the highway, right? We've got to adapt, improvise, figure out what works best, because quite frankly, the workforce in many businesses is smaller because of technology anyway. So we're adapting anyway.
Absolutely. And I think you just brought up a great point. Another reason we're going to have to adapt is demographics. It's really simple. Our birth rates are declining. So there are fewer and fewer potential workers, Johnny, that are going to be coming into the workforce. So we're going to have less to choose from. So we're going to have to think differently about how we do business in order to meet that challenge. Also, we have increased numbers of retirements. One of the other statistics I read was that about 11,000 workers will be turning 65 years old in the United States every day from 2024 to 2027. So that's going to equal several million people who are reaching that retirement age who are going to be going out the door. So we kind of have a perfect storm coming together. Fewer workers coming into the labor force, more workers exiting the labor force than we have seen in many, many years. So we're going to have to think about, to your point, how do we meet them where they are? Because there's fewer of them and there's going to be more need for them. Additionally, one of the things we talked about with the oil and gas industry is it's a male-dominated industry. So we have about 85% of our workforce is male. Mm-hmm. Many, many other industries, construction, for example, have much higher percentages of males at 97%. So again, we're not the only industry in energy who's interested in these male workers, for example. There are many other industries competing for them. There's also other industries who are facing this problem of aging talent. You mentioned radio.
Sure.
So again, we in energy aren't going to be the only ones who want those workers. We have a program in oil and gas called the Ohio Natural Energy Institute, and they're doing a lot of outreach with schools, and that's becoming increasingly important. One of the other things you'll see is a lot of kids who are in school these days are saying, I want to know more about careers, but I'm not hearing about it at school. So that's where One Eye can come in and be able to talk about the career opportunities we have. And I think more industries are going to have to think about how do they go out and proactively let students from a very young age, perhaps as young as middle school, know here are the career opportunities that are available to you, so we can get that in front of these students and they can be thinking about it.
Yeah, you make a great point when we think about the Ohio Energy Institute and the app that they've instituted in trying to get these young people involved in the scholarships and so forth and so on. But appreciate you for bringing light to this as it relates to the energy sector. And I'm talking about trends and workforce trends. I'm curious how you got into the business thereof, in terms of crunching these numbers and looking at the data and figuring out, just a little bit makes a difference if we're willing to give in a little bit, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. So I think that I have a passion for our region and really wanting to see it move ahead, wanting people to understand that there can be living wage opportunities here for them and there can be careers. I started off working at Zane State College in my career, and I saw there a number of displaced workers who were coming back to school because they had lost a job at a place like NCR, needed a new career path. So I think I really got fascinated then about what are the opportunities available to people and how do we better make those connections between individuals looking at employment opportunities and employers out here who have those, and also those training providers who can help bridge that gap. I'm really concerned, Johnny, because in our region we have a serious brain drain problem. Our population is getting older here. We touched on that in one of our previous episodes around the country, but our population specifically here in Appalachian, Ohio, is getting older. And so we have to get more young people to stay in this region. That brain drain phenomenon is a huge problem. And I think, again, that's where workforce can come in. If we can get people aware of those career opportunities, they might want to stay here in our region where now they're thinking there's nothing here for me. If we can help them make some of those connections, maybe they'll get in a career path and they'll want to stay in our region and stay here in Appalachian, Ohio.
Yeah, as it relates to, some of the counties around here and the oil and gas industry that has gone up and down a little bit, but the opportunities here is not like you're going to find it down the road. You're going to brighter pastures, but it's right here, right now. And I think that, is it because you're from here that, or are you from here that you're focused on this particular industry, or are you doing this for many industries?
Well, so I work with several industries. So oil and gas happens to be a passion project because my husband's in the business. And so I have that. But then I've worked with other industries like manufacturing as well. And I think, Johnny, you just hit on something really important. One of the things a lot of people aren't aware of is, for example, orphan well plugging. So orphan well plugging is a huge problem in Ohio. We have about 20,000 known orphan wells in Ohio. What does that mean? Well, that means those wells are no longer producing, but they're emitting methane. They can be hazardous, found in a location. For example, I just heard the other day, there's one that's been found in the middle of Seneca Lake, no less. One found recently in Cleveland as an apartment complex was being constructed. The point is, these things are everywhere. There are going to be some great career opportunities here with all of this infrastructure dollars coming into Ohio. So again, we're trying to work with SUGA, with the Ohio Natural Energy Institute, to put together a training program, because right now a training program doesn't exist. And the Department of Natural Resources will tell you that workforce is the biggest single issue and reason why more orphan wells can't be plugged in Ohio. These are good living wage jobs. So I really want to see our people get those. I don't want to see someone imported, if you will, to Ohio from another state or from another country, perhaps Canada even, as I've heard could happen, to do this work. We have citizens here who want good gainful employment. Let's make that happen for them.
And so the opportunity to get those training programs in progress, that's underway, right? Make the next step. And I know that you're working with those different people to make that happen. So is that, you feel the progress there?
Absolutely. Thank you, Johnny. So ONE-I, the Ohio Natural Energy Institute, and the Ohio Oil and Gas Association, we worked together and we submitted an ARC power planning grant. We're very optimistic that that grant could come through and help us really look at the data. What does the data show as far as what skills are needed? What training programs already exist where we could maybe add some additional classes for orphan well plugging? What is there in terms of wages and opportunities for people? So if we put that data together, if we're successful at getting this grant, we could then go after some larger grants to help some of our educational institutions to stand up these training programs and then get people into these careers so they can make a great wage, and we can also make our environment better by having those orphan wells plugged. So it's a win for everyone.
That's fantastic. Dorinda Byers is our guest, and a little plug for Bruce Tagg as well. We talked about, he gave me the ONE-I a couple of times, and I'm like, all right, come on, what's the acronym here? Ohio Natural Energy Institute. Institute, just for the listeners, and they'll get that eventually because we bring it up a lot. But thank you for your time. We're a little smarter because of you and appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate the opportunity to highlight the energy industry and some of the great careers available.
Dorinda Byers, our guest. The program is Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association.
Thank you for listening to Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Tune in every Saturday morning on WMOA Local Radio, Jaws Country, and ESPN as Johnny Wharf brings you a local and inside perspective on the oil and gas industry right here in the Mid-Ohio Valley.